Hi, welcome to TNT. Well, the Murdoch family saga and control over the media empire has finally reached its finale. Result, the 94-year-old Rupert Murdoch has ensured that his legacy will continue exactly as he wanted it. The result of recent court decisions will continue to shape the American and conservative media space for decades to come. Such is the influence the family had in redefining the role of media as kingmaker in politics, and how to change journalism from a respected skill into a partisan money-making machine. I've known, or at least obliquely, James Murdoch through my sailing circles in the early 90s, and I've interviewed Rupert Murdoch's mother, the late Elizabeth Murdoch, in her home at Cruden Farm in Langwarrin, Victoria, probably 3 or 4 times. I also grew up reading his conservative local daily rag in Melbourne, the Herald Sun, and the national The Australian, both of which continue to publish to this day, in print and online. But over the past decade, the 4 Murdoch siblings have been fighting over the media empire, which includes the cash cow and vastly popular Fox News. Lachlan, latterly falling into step with his father's conservative vision of the world, was wanting full control of the empire. His father wanted that too. But James, Prudence and Elizabeth were wanting to pivot the bias of the Murdoch Empire somewhere back to the centre, acknowledging the damage caused by the right-leaning media megaphone. Well, that's a very simplistic view of a much more complicated and convoluted family successional saga. But in the end, Rupert took his 3 wayward children to court to try and change the long-standing deal that all 4 children would be heirs to his empire. But after years of legal battles, sealed courtrooms and backroom manoeuvring, Rupert Murdoch's chosen heir is now locked in. Lachlan Murdoch, the conservative son, will take sole control of the whole empire. Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and continued control of the entire News Corp empire. Prudence, Elizabeth and James, well, they're out, paid off with roughly $1 billion each, but stripped of any power in the family business going forward. Now, let's be clear, this wasn't about money, this was about control. Rupert Murdoch was determined that his empire, which has shaped politics in the US, the UK and Australia for decades, would stay firmly on the conservative track. And Lachlan is the only one of his children that he trusts to keep it that way. James Murdoch, for example, has been openly critical of Fox News for giving Donald Trump a platform to push election lies and for its climate change denial. Elizabeth and Prudence leaned, well, somewhere more in the centre. Together, the 3 could have challenged Lachlan when Rupert eventually died. But Rupert wasn't going to risk that, so he went nuclear. The fight played out in Nevada, one of the most secretive places in the world for family trust disputes. The court there eventually found that Rupert and Lachlan had acted in bad faith by trying to change the rules of his will. But instead of ending the fight, it forced a deal. That deal is brutal in its simplicity. 3 siblings walk away with mountains of cash, and one, Lachlan, gets the keys to the kingdom. If you like, it's Shakespeare with spreadsheets. A father at 94 still pulling the strings, children turning on each other, and in the end the throne goes to the loyal son, while the others are exiled with their billions. Sounds familiar? Well, it should, because the TV show Succession was basically modelled on this very story. Only the Murdoch version is colder, cleaner, and even more ruthless. Now, here's the irony. Rupert always called this a family business, a dynasty for his children. But in making sure the empire stays conservative, he's effectively blown up that family unity. So what does all this mean? In the short term, Rupert got exactly what he wanted. Lachlan's in charge, no challenges, no dilution of the Fox political bent. But in the long term, well, who knows? Lachlan's doubling down on the same formula that made Fox powerful, but also toxic in its ability to sway the room and control political consequences. But without dissenting voices like James or Elizabeth, the empire risks becoming an even narrower echo chamber. Make no mistake, this was Rupert Murdoch's last big power play, calculated and absolutely on brand. The empire survives, the family in tatters, a mere casualty of a man determined that his conservative megaphone would last beyond his grave. The history will look back at the end of the 20th century and the start of the 21st and the impactful role of the Murdoch family on politics, reaching way beyond their Australian roots to become the most consequential political voice since William Randolph Hearst. Weaponising journalism has been one of the most brilliant, perhaps cynical, but certainly consequential business decisions of the past half-century. The impact which will now continue to ring through the hallways of presidencies and parliaments around the world, long after the death of Rupert Murdoch. Thanks for watching.